Right. Well, I made the case early on, and I could present more. I mean, time is limited here. When I said that he's led the chorus. All right, he didn't start the war on police, but he led chimed in very early on in some of these incidents and made some very disgusting statements, against the police. Now, yeah, I know he called the widow of the uh, law enforcement officer in Houston, Texas. But you know what? He has to be he has to be made to do this. He didn't do that right away. And when he has written letters, it's usually because there's mounting pressure and disgust about the fact that he's been silent, unlike he's come forward on people like Mike Brown, Eric Garner, people who were involved in criminal activity. They didn't deserve to die. No one deserves to die like that. But those individuals were engaged in criminal behavior and were engaged in lifestyle choices that weren't going to work out real well for them. And he came out early on in those situations in support of those people. And I think the only reason that he came, and it went on like 3, 4 days where we hadn't heard from the president on the Houston, Texas situation. And finally he did. It's almost like begrudgingly. He knows, well, I got to go through the motions here because what he's done, and people have asked me this. They said, well, the other day he came out and he said, American police officers have a tough job. Yeah, he says stuff that's obligatory. Then he does a 180 and he pivots. He goes from talking about how tough the job is, does a pivot and starts talking about how black people are, or young black men are treated differently in these communities, so on and so forth. Again, if you look at any of the data that someone presents that says there's a disparate amount of black people involved in traffic stops and whatnot, first of all, you have to look at the crime rates. All right. And if, for instance, 70% of the people involved in violent crime in a particular neighborhood or in a particular city are black, it stands to reason that when the police have interactions in that community, when they're looking for suspects, when they're trying to keep the peace, it's going to be with black people. Eric Holder's own Department of Justice looked at traffic stop data in 2013, and that report concluded that those disparities can be explained away with the involvement of criminal behavior by black men in these areas that we surveyed. So on its face, it seems a lot. If you look and say, well, 68% of the people involved in traffic stops are black, or 68% get their cars searched, so on and so forth. But if you look at their rates of involvement in crime, that levels it off, and it really makes it kind of neutral.